everyone, and welcome back to Liz Sews. Today I have a little supplemental video that shows you the few key differences between the view A of the Emerald Erin Black Beauty bra. This is only intended to be supplemental to the tutorial that I've already posted online. So if you want to get some more information just about how to construct the cups or the bands and stuff like that, I would still recommend that video, and I will pop a link to it up here. But if you are doing view A, there are a couple of things that are a little bit different, and that has to do with the way the straps that are handled, because we have two straps here on view A, and this is using fold-over elastic that is stabilized with twill tape. You also see a difference in how the top of the cups are finished and when they are finished, and how the side of the power bar is finished as well. So stay tuned and I will show you all those differences of the Black Beauty bra view A. So here we have all of the pieces for view A. Now the pieces are very similar to view B. The only real difference is the seam allowances. So in view A, you have your seam allowances removed from the top of the bridge, the underarm section of the upper cup, the top of your cradle, and the top of your band, and lastly this curve of the power bar. These all have the seam allowances removed because we're going to be putting fold over elastic on them instead of Picot elastic, so you don't have to have any seam allowance. It gets folded around to the back. So now that we've taken a look at all of the cutout pieces, let's get to constructing it. So our first step is going to be starting with the power bar, and this one differs from view B. So Emerald Erin recommends in her directions to sort of turn back this upper edge and sew it down. The last one that I did with this style, I actually finished the upper edge of this power bar with fold over elastic, and I really liked how that looks, so I'm going to do that today. It's really easy. All I'm going to do, because this is such a short seam, I don't bother doing it in two passes, but you just want to sandwich that seam, the upper edge of the cup, in between your fold over elastic, and then sew that down with a zigzag stitch. So here I have done that with both of these power bars. Now we're going to finish off this inner curve of the power bar with our fold over elastic. So you want to start off with a 10-inch piece and then mark 10 inches in with your chalk. Okay, so here I've just measured that 10 inches and marked it with a piece of chalk. And you want that to align with the top of your power bar piece. So this extra 10 inches that's up here is going to eventually be part of your strap later on. So I'm going to sew this in two passes just because it's pretty long seam, and it's curved, so it might not be the easiest to align by itself. So I'm going to take this over and just machine baste it with long straight stitches down here. We want to line the center of the fabric, or the edge of this fabric, up with that center fold of the fold over elastic. I have my shiny side facing up right now, and that's because when it closes up it's going to show the matte side out, but it's really your preference. You can use either the shiny or the matte side facing out. So I've got this lined up with my machine. I've got a straight stitch as long as it will go. For mine it's a 5 millimeters. But if your machine has a different basting stitch, you go ahead and use that. And I'm just going to go down and sort of manipulate this fabric in place as I move along. So now that I've gotten this basted into place, we can finish off the top. You're going to want to start at the very top of this with that 10-inch extension. You're going to want to take 1/4-inch twill tape. So I'm using a kit that Emerald Erin makes, which the twill tape is included. This is a polyester twill tape, which is very thin, but I'm sure that you could probably use a cotton twill tape if that's something you already have in your sewing stash. So I just align it in the center there, and I fold it over top and sit it under my foot. Now I'm going to go in with a zigzag stitch. I have mine at about 2 millimeters wide and 1.5 millimeters long. So here's what it looks like when you have both of those done. And because of that twill tape in the strap, you can see this is very stable. I can't really stretch it at all, even if I tug on it really hard. I know some people were concerned that with heavier bust sizes, this sort of strap wouldn't work, but I think with the twill tape in there, it is staying firm, just like a fabric strap would. So now I'm just going to put the cup together, just like view B. As I had mentioned, if you want to see more in-depth tutorials on the construction of this bra, I would highly recommend watching the tutorial. And again, I will link that up here in the top. So here's what the cut pieces will look once they're sewn together. You want to repeat that for the second one as well. I'm going to set these aside and assemble the frame. So here I have my back band Powernet and then my side cradle. I'm going to start with that first. And I want to put the fashion fabric on one side of your band and the lining on the other. Pin that into place and sew it with a straight stitch. And then just like we did for the cup, you want to fold everything back out and top stitch. So here you can see what it looks like once it's done. Using the stitch and flip method, you are of course encasing all of that seam allowance inside of the bra to make it a lot smoother against your skin. Once you've done that to both sides of the frame, we're going to bring in our bridge piece. Now normally you see me sew the bridge piece with the right sides together and then flip it around, but we're going to leave the upper part of this bridge raw for now. It's going to be finished later on in the construction with some fold over elastic. So that's another difference from view B. In view B, you want to finish this before you put in the cups. In view A, you want to finish it afterwards. So for this, I'm not going to bother doing the stitch and flip method because this seam is almost completely covered up by my underwire channeling and my lower band elastic. So it won't really matter if I've done the stitch and flip. So I'm just going to take my two pieces of bridge and put them right sides together with my two pieces of the cradle and then sew in a straight line at 1/4 inch. I'm top stitching down my seam allowances just to get it a little bit flatter. This is what it looks like once those pieces are attached. Now we're going to start putting our cup pieces in. Make sure that before you pin your cup into your frame, you attach the power bar that we created earlier. I like to just line up the points at the underarm and then pin around this curve before pinning it into my frame. Once your cups are sewn in, it should look something like this. Now we're going to put in our underwire channeling. Just like we did for view B, we are going to sew this into the seam allowance of the cup as close as we can to the edge. Once the channeling is sewn in, it should look like this. Now I know in the instructions, Erin says you should start the center front about 1 inch below as well. However, I like to finish mine underneath the fold over elastic so it has a little bit of a cleaner edge. So I sew my channeling all the way up to the tippy top, and then you can see here that I've closed off that inner edge of the elastic as well, or of the channeling as well. So then the fold over elastic is just going to come over top of this and finish it really nicely. Now we're going to attach our bottom band elastic. We're going to sew that in with a zigzag stitch onto the bottom of the band, making sure to put just a little bit of tension around these corners to help them move a little bit easier. So here's what the band will look like once it's sewn in from the inside. Now we're going to start working on the top. So first thing, you want to sort of move your power bars out of the way, and then we're going to run a line of fold over elastic starting from the underarm edge of one cup down across the bridge and back to the other side. So just like we did the fold over elastic earlier in the tutorial, I'm going to start with a pass of basting it in with a straight stitch as long as possible, and then fold it over and zigzag on top of it. When I get to the bridge, I want to make sure that I have both of my underwire channelings pushed to the inside, right? You don't want them flipping out into your cup area, so you have those ugly seam allowances showing. You want to make sure that they are inside of your bridge, and so when the fold over elastic comes over top of them, everything is nice and clean. So here's what it looks like once it's all sewn into place. It'll look really straight right now, but don't worry, once you get your chest in there, it'll work itself out. And then you can see from the inside how that really makes a nice clean finish on those underwires. I think that looks really nice. So next step is to complete the fold over elastic on the upper edge of the band. So we're going to bring our power bar back up and make sure that it's pinned into place. Power bar does extend about an inch or so beyond the cup edge, so don't be alarmed. The other thing I'm going to do right now is pin my channeling out of the way. You remember we left about an inch of it unsewn. I just want to make sure that we don't accidentally catch that in any of our seams. So I like to just put a pin in it just to make sure it's kept out of the way. So we're going to again use fold over elastic starting and go all the way on this edge, extending up this curve, and then it's going to extend another 8 or 10 inches beyond, just like the strap we did earlier. So I'm going to tack this into place with my long basting stitches. I'm going to measure out my 10 inches on this fold over elastic and mark it so that I have something to line myself up against over here. Once you completed that, it looks something like this. You have your 2 straps coming off here and finishing off that underarm edge. And the other side as well. So now that we have both our upper and lower band elastics in, we can go ahead and finish the underwire channeling. I'm going to do it from the inside because I find that's a little bit easier for me. And now we kept this free so that it could stay outside of this elastic here. So I'm just going to take my machine and stitch as close as I can all along this edge. It tends to overlap on the band a little bit. That's perfectly fine. And all the way to the center, pivot, and back down this one as well. You might see a little bit too much bulk in these sections here, especially where that seam is on the bridge and where the power bar crosses over. So I would also sort of grade down all these seam allowances in here to make it a little less bulky. Here's what the underwire channeling looks once you've top stitched both sides. On the inside, you should make sure to catch both sides of this as well. Now the rest of the construction is exactly the same as view B. I'll link up that tutorial up here. All we have left to do is put on our straps, our hook and eyes, and then attach these 2 ends to our straps and close in our underwire channeling.